All right. Now let's look at our social sites data. It looks great. Let's look at our user links data. It has priority of 10 on all of these, and that's because it's defined with a default of priority 10. We actually want these to automatically increment, but increment based on UserUID. In other words, Mary should have a 10, 20, 30. Alex should have a 10, 20, 30. Everybody should have a 10, 20, 30 as their first three priorities. So how do we do that? We're going to go to some SQL coding. All right, here is a SQL trigger that I created for widgets that are in the standard Wizards Toolkit database. We're going to add this here, and I'm going to just basically copy paste stuff. All right, SQL trigger for priority defaulting based on UserUID. Okay, so we want this for the user links table. So we're going to change that to there. I use a naming convention of TIB for trigger insert before, because this is an insert before, and therefore insert after would be a TIA, update after would be a TUA, update before would be a TUB, and that's a nice naming convention that I use for triggers. Anyways, there's our user links for each row. We're going to still want our last priority, and we'll say, now there won't be any null user UIDs, so we can get rid of this. And we'll get rid of that. We'll get rid of that. One of my philosophies is if you have something that works, use that code instead of rewriting the code from scratch. Alright, and we know this has worked. I don't do this with code unless I have fully tested it and verified it to the nth degree. This code definitely works. Alright, so select count into there from user links, where user UID equals, this means from the currently being inserted row equals that. If the count is over 0, then, now here we're checking for a null, we're going to get rid of that. Because in the widget table you can have nulls, but in this table you can't. And then we're going to say, let's find out what the last priority was. We don't need that part. There we go. And here's doing a descending limit 1, so it's finding out what is the highest priority that currently exists. And then it is setting it to there. Now here it's saying plus 10. Why does that work? Because here it's saying count equals this. So if the count is 0, then this will be 0 plus 10. And we want them to start at 10. So that works. And doing set new priority, we'll set it to the priority value. And there we go. All right, let's run this on the database. Oops, got to put in my... There we go. Boom, we now have it. Now how are we going to test it? First I'm going to update these. Set that one to 20, this one to 30. And we're going to insert a new one using the website and verify that it increments it by another 20. Now there's the YouTube. Let me copy in my actual YouTube. And there's the YouTube thing. Now let's refresh this. Voila! It automatically incremented it to 40. We could verify and test it with multiple user UIDs, but trust me, it works. I will upload that new trigger to the Git repository. Now let's do the next cool thing, which is allow the user to drag and drop to change their priority based on Wizard's Toolkit. Okay, we have a good demo of that in Wizard's Toolkit. All right, let's search in here. Here is the magic code to prioritize. All right. So let's go back to our user edit page. Go to the social links SQL. And where do we want it? Let's put it between these two. There it is. Put a comma there, and now we're going to change this priority, widget priority, to simply priority. See if there's anything else that's needed. Nope, everything else is exactly how we want it to be. So we're going to save and go back here. There's a problem. Oh, I have X in here. Yeah, we can't have that. All right, so this should be UL. We'll do a search replace to make sure I don't miss any. That was it. Now we have this, which should be a drag and drop. Now I'm going to change, let's put the linked in. Oh, I forgot to include this. Okay, so here's our HTML. I'll just put that right here. It will add the hidden fields, and now we'll say this is the table that we want to affect. Priority is the column, not widget priority. Okay, the range filter, or that is what is the parent ID. That is what is the parent ID, and for this page it's going to be the glow ID, which is the UID of the WTK user, and that will be the user UID. So we'll put that there, and then what do you want to refresh? Now that's really important, and so we need to change that to be login social list, not socialist, but social list. And why that? Because that's the thing that we created previously for refreshing this particular page. All right, let's see if that works. All right, that will only really be used if you have more than 20 on a page, which probably nobody will. All right, so you get a little lesson on how to debug this as well as how to make it work. So again, I'm going to move this over so we can see this as it happens. We're going to do a little drag and drop, and it looks like it worked sort of. So it called the social list, it passed in this information, the table, the column, the from IDs, the to IDs. It gave us a response of OK, and then it came back with this. Now let's look at the actual data. Now you see here 1, 2, 3, 4, 10, 20, 30, 40. Let's see if this is still the case. It's not. Now the LinkedIn is before the GitHub. but this looks like it did not sort properly. So let's see what happened there. Well, wait a second, it did sort properly. LinkedIn and then the GitHub. So it didn't update the page properly. Let's see why. So it called this correctly, and when it called it, it passed in the ID correctly, range 1. Now let's see the social list here, and this is going on UserUID, which is appropriate also because it will know based on who's logged in what the UserUID is, so it should fill this. So this is working fine, as we already know, because we can see the results. The question is, why didn't it refill the link? And that, I'm sure, is because of something like this. It's looking for the item to refill. So if we go back to looking at the widget manager, we will see in the database the BuildDataBrowse, it's using just the table name for the ID of the table browse. So let's do that. I'm sure that that's the issue, because here I use social links. So let's change that to using user links. And what's happening is the JavaScript is updating and replacing the table with the new value. So we're going to move the YouTube above that. And again, it worked here and it's not updating the right thing. Let me look into why. Because if we leave the page and we come back, YouTube has been moved. We look at the raw data, YouTube has been moved. Note, yep, YouTube has been moved. So it's just a matter of not refreshing properly. You'll see up here I have debug equals y, and that's why all this great JavaScript console information is showing. Okay, one of the best things to do when you have a page like social list, which is refreshing something from a parent page, is to copy and paste the exact code from one to the other. So I'm going to go in here, and sure enough, you see here we had social links and social links. That's part of the problem. So I'm going to replace that there. By the way, on the parent page or user edit, this page is loaded and then it echoes the page HTML, and therefore a replace afterwards works great. Whereas for the social list, because it is called as an AJAX call for refreshing, this actually checks to see if the table ID is the one that is being called for the AJAX. That way you could have multiple WTK build data browse on a page, and only the one with a matching table ID will be exported. In which case, what we want to do is we want to do a search and replace, a Wizard's Toolkit search and replace, so that it will handle that before it exports or echoes the build browse. Because in the AJAX call, it will never get past this line. It will echo this and say I'm done because it was an AJAX call and it has a matching table ID link, so show that because we're going to refill it based on this table ID link. So let's do that. We can also say, hey, I want to make sure that my SQL is exactly the same, so I'm going to change that here too. And now let's try it. Voila, it's working. All right, a little time jump here. I have added the your websites and verified that these, let's look at me moving IntelliMuse to the top, moving it back down. These are working and these are still working. Let me show you the code that I used. All right, back in the user edit, we added a second set of drag and drop hidden fields. And down here, we just added a call M6S12 for your grid, your websites. Looks like that. This is almost identical. You're passing in the priority and the UID of this other table, user websites. And here's your edits and whatnot. And notice we're using user websites as the table ID again. And if we go back up here, we see that drag table 2 is user websites, location, table, column, priority. The refresh 2 will be the website list, and the filter not important. If we look here at the website 2, it's just a copy of the select statement, and down here a copy of the WTK BuildDataBrowse. And that handles all the magic. All the magic, by the way, happens to be in the WTK JS, WTK utils. So if we do a search on this in WTK utils, you'll find it's right there. And here it's passing in the 2ID, 2post, and the set. And the set is what makes it, if you pass nothing, then it defaults to just being the original drag table. And if you pass in a value like 2, then it populates as so. Alright, and if we look back at the user edit, we'll see here's all of this. How does it know to use 2? Because we're passing in that 2 parameter right there. That's the only difference between this one and the other one, is by passing that 2, which goes into the drop ID, it knows which set of hidden fields to use for its drag drop options. Alright, if you have any questions, leave your notes in the YouTube comments. Subscribe for more on the business of programming.